If you've been following the economic news lately, you might be feeling a little bit of whiplash. One headline is screaming about growth and innovation, and the very next one is talking about bankruptcies and downturns. It's pretty confusing, right? Well, today, we're going to try and make sense of it all. So, it all boils down to this one big question. Is the economy booming or is it busting? And as we're about to see, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. The wild part is the answer is both at the exact same time. To really get a handle on this, let's zoom in on one single day, January 26th, 2026. On this day, two major American companies made announcements that, honestly, tell you pretty much everything you need to know. So, on one side of the coin, you've got the defense tech company Anduril Industries. They announced a massive $1 billion investment to build a new campus in Southern California. I mean, that's what a boom looks like, right? But get this. On the very same day, a totally different story was playing out. Fat Brands, that's the parent company for chains like Fatburger and Johnny Rockets with over 2,200 locations, well, they filed for bankruptcy. And this slide just lays it all out, side by side. It's stark. On the left, you've got Anduril, we're talking major expansion, a cool $1 billion in investment, and 5,500 new jobs. Then you look to the right, and you see Fat Brands, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, trying to fix their balance sheet, and a total restructuring of their operations. Two completely opposite directions announced on the same Tuesday. And just listen to the way people talked about the Anduril news. It was all about the future, right? California's governor celebrated it as shaping the next generation of American industry. The words are all about innovation, leadership, high-paying jobs. It's pure optimism. Now, flip that on its head and listen to the CEO of Fat Brands. The language here is so much more cautious, almost defensive. It's about strengthening capital, supporting concepts, making sure they survive. One company is literally building the future, the other is just trying to secure its present. So this whole Anduril versus Fat Brands thing, it's not just a fluke. It is a perfect snapshot of the entire U.S. economy after a really wild 2025. And it makes sense when you think about it, doesn't it? One company is built to thrive in a world with geopolitical tension and more defense spending, while the other depends on the everyday consumer who is getting squeezed from every direction. And to really get why this is happening, you gotta look back at 2025. What a year. It kicked off with a presidential inauguration, which signaled some major policy changes were on the way. Then, halfway through the year, the Fed started cutting interest rates, trying to get things moving. All the while, an escalating trade war with China was creating constant uncertainty. And to top it all off, the year ended with the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. I mean, each one of these things was pulling the economy in a different direction. That trade war especially, wow, it just threw a huge wrench into everything. New tariffs meant that some businesses suddenly had way higher costs, while others were more protected. It created this landscape of very clear winners and losers. For a defense contractor like Anduril, this kind of environment can actually mean more business at home. But for a restaurant group like Fat Brands, it can mean prices for everything from kitchen equipment to food are going up, and that just kills your margins. Okay, so that's the big picture stuff, right? The 30,000-foot view. But what does all this economic tug-of-war actually feel like on the ground in a real community? To figure that out, we're going to shift our focus away from the coasts and head right to the heartland. For that, we're going to look at Kansas City. It's a metro area that, by just about every measure, has been absolutely crushing it. It's the perfect place to see how all these competing forces really play out, at the street level. And yeah, you look at the stats, and Kansas City is on fire. It's a top 5 travel destination, a top 10 housing market, #1 in its region for food manufacturing, a top city for Gen Z, and a top metro for tech job growth. These are some seriously impressive numbers. But here's the thing. Do those big, fancy rankings tell you what's really going on? Let's zoom in. Weigh in. We're going to talk about a chicken restaurant. So when word got out that a popular chain, Zankou Chicken, was coming to town, the initial reaction was just pure excitement. Like this Reddit user who just wrote, "finally," with 3 exclamation points. That right there is what pent-up consumer demand looks like. People were clearly ready to open their wallets. But here's where it gets interesting. Almost instantly, that excitement morphed into this really intense local debate. How would the new place stack up against the beloved local spots? This shows you the market isn't just growing, it's also really competitive and pretty sophisticated. Consumers have options, and they definitely have opinions. And then you get this comment, which honestly just perfectly sums it all up. One user joked that they should just rename a local street Chicken Street because there were so many chicken joints packed into one area. It's funny, but it points to something really important about this economy. Growth isn't spread out evenly, it's super concentrated, which leads to this intense competition, even inside a city that's doing great overall. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. We've got a booming defense contractor and a bankrupt restaurant giant. We've got a chaotic national economy. And we've got a hot city that's turning into Chicken Street. What in the world does it all mean? I think the most important thing to take away from all this is that we have to stop thinking about the economy as one single thing. It's not a monolith that's just good or bad. It's this messy, complex system where winners and losers, booms and busts are happening right next door to each other, all at the same time. And that really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. In an economy that is so full of contradictions, when growth and decline are happening simultaneously, how do we actually measure success anymore? The old indicators might not be enough. The real story, as we've seen, is way more complicated, and honestly, a whole lot more interesting.